Welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hi, I'm James Thompson, one of the hosts of the BuyBox Experts podcast. I'm a partner with BuyBox Experts and former business head of the Selling on Amazon team at Amazon, as well as the first account manager for the Fulfillment by Amazon program. I'm the co-author of a couple of books on Amazon, including the recent book, Controlling Your Brand in the Age of Amazon. Today's episode is brought to you by BuyBox Experts. BuyBox Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. When you hire BuyBox Experts, you receive the strategy optimization and marketing performance to succeed on Amazon. BuyBox Experts combines executive level advisory services with expert performance management and execution on your Amazon channel business. Go to buyboxexperts.com to learn more. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to send a big shout out to the team at Disruptive Advertising. For off-Amazon advertising, Disruptive Advertising offers the highest level of service in the digital marketing industry. Focusing on driving traffic, converting traffic, and enterprise analytics, Disruptive helps their clients increase their bottom line month after month. Check out disruptiveadvertising.com to learn more. I am thrilled today to have as a guest Jason Boyce, CEO and Avenue 7 Media's founder. Avenue 7 is an Amazon agency supporting brands. Jason was the CEO and co-founder of Dazity.com, a top 200 Amazon seller, and one of the original private label sellers on Amazon, having started selling on Amazon way back in 2003. Earlier this year, Jason co-authored the book, The Amazon Jungle, a survival guide about the challenges of being a seller on the Amazon marketplace. Jason, welcome, and thanks very much for joining us today on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Hello, old friend. It's such a pleasure to be here. Always great to talk to you under any circumstances, and I'm honored that you would invite me on this great podcast you guys have created.
Thank you, Jason. So for the amusement of our audience, why don't you share the story and remind us all how it is that the two of us first met many years ago.
I love telling this story, James. I don't even know what year it was, but it was a heck of a long time ago. My brother and I, we have this big Amazon seller business in the sports and outdoors category. You're running sports and outdoors, right? I don't know what your title was. It was a fancy title. And so we flew up to meet with you because you were one of the few folks that actually liked face-to-face meetings with the big sellers. Yeah. So imagine that. You think they do that anymore, James? I don't think they do.
Not very often. Yeah. really special.
Yeah, but but Elon and I jumped on an airplane, flew from LA up to Seattle, and we're walking around. We're in the Amazon headquarters. I'm not even sure which building. They got 60 buildings there now. I'm not sure which one it was back in the day. But I see all these people walking around with their blue shirt, their blue dress shirt and their jeans, like they're trying to be like Jeff Bezos. And then I bump into this guy in the hallway who's wearing an Edmonton Oilers hockey jersey.
Guilty as charged.
Jeans. And I said, "Hey, I'm looking for James Thompson." And you're like, "Hey, that's me." And that's how this long friendship started. I thought, I think I can like this guy. You're someone over there. You're your own thinker. You went way above and beyond always, even in your days back in Amazon, James, where you were literally always had an Amazon seller's back, which is why, I call you the godfather of the Amazon seller, because even back when you were there, you always fought the good fight for the third-party seller. Just became fast friends. And then luckily a few years later, when I moved up to Seattle, we really hit it off. And so, this is, I really value my friendship with you. And it's funny to think about how long ago that was when we first met in Amazon HQ.
I didn't have gray hair back then.
Me neither, buddy.
So back before the term private label seller was a sexy term to use on Amazon, you and your brothers, you were original gangsters selling your own brand on Amazon. When you look at what constitutes private label businesses today on Amazon, how have things changed in the last 20 years? What's important? What's been just reinvented under different terminology? Give me your thoughts.
Well, it wasn't never my intention to create our own brand. we had to do it because when we first started selling all the way back in 2002, 2003, we were selling other people's stuff and we were drop shipping. We didn't even carry inventory. I'll tell you what, life was good back then when you didn't have to do inventory projections.
Yeah.
And then, you wake up one morning and Amazon's attached to all of your listings at 20 to 30% lower retail price than you can imagine you could sell it.
Yep.
So then we moved on and we started selling other people's brands, but we worked with the brands to create what we called exclusives. Because we figured out if we had our own UPC code, even though it wasn't our brand, we didn't have to share the buy box, and not sharing the buy box had these tremendous results. So even though Amazon lopped onto all of our other stuff, the brands we were able to convince to do exclusives, we saw 2, 3, 4x revenue growth as a result.
Yep.
And then of course, that's until Amazon would call those vendors and say, if you don't sell those, we're going to stop buying all your goods, stop selling to Dazity, sell to us. And then we're like, okay, the only way we're going to survive on here, this is where the customers are, this is where the shoppers are, is we got to build our own brand. And so it was just one of the most meaningful things I ever did professionally. I never realized this, but I just really had a passion for first listening to the customers, what they didn't like in the marketplace, and come up with creative solutions that solved those problems before we even listed our product. And then the even more fun part for me was making things look cool. And in my book, I talk about this story about how we designed an air hockey table. And I was walking in a surf shop at a mall, and I saw these cool board shorts, these cool color schemes, and I took a picture. I was too cheap, I didn't even buy them. I took a picture, took it back to my graphic designers and said, this is going to be an air hockey table. They're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, this is going to be an air hockey table. Skin it with these colors. And so that sort of creative process was something that was much more engaging and much more fun for me. And you can still do that today. So, I mean, I still think that that's a lost art, that being able to do those things to create something new and different in the marketplace is incredibly relevant now. You can't do like we did for a while before we started designing our own stuff, go in and knock off a product and offer a lower retail price. You can't do that. You can't compete with the China factories that Amazon's rolled out the red carpet to. So you've got to be different. And our mutual friend, Rick Cesari, by the way, I talked to him earlier today. He said to say hi to you. Rick Cesari says, difference better than better. If you can be different and better and design something that looks cool and pops off that search results page, you can really have success on Amazon. And I'm just an agency now, so I help others develop SKU pipelines. So I missed that creative process, James. It was a lot of fun.
So in the book that you wrote with Rick Cesari, The Amazon Jungle, you advocate very strongly for the Amazon seller. Share with me how you see the role of the Amazon seller today in that whole Amazon flywheel of growth.
Well, first of all, James, no one is a bigger advocate for the third-party Amazon seller than you are. No one's been doing it longer than you are, and I thank you, and the entire seller community thanks you. But secondly, yeah, man, I was in their shoes. I was a seller. And I know what it's like to have to make payroll in 2 weeks when Amazon suspends your account for a reason they don't tell you why. I know what it's like to have 2 or 3 of your top sellers that are putting food on the table go down, right? And it's not okay. It's not okay for sellers who are doing everything right, who are following terms of service, who are breaking their tails to bring great products to the Amazon shopper, that this is happening. And so, I start all the way back at the beginning. Amazon would not be what it is today without the hard work, the product knowledge, the ingenuity, the grit, the capital of the third-party seller. What is there, 15 million SKUs, which is a lot for a retailer that Amazon Retail has. Third-party sellers bring 500 million to the table. Good luck. I mean, Amazon just hired 500,000 people this year, which hasn't happened since the shipbuilding days of World War II in an industry. But they can't hire enough people to replace the third-party seller. They wouldn't be where they are today without them. They won't be what they are in the future, or what they're going to become in the future without them. And it sucks that they don't do a better job of protecting them, protecting these small businesses that are so critical to not only the Amazon ecosystem, but to the entire small business community. And I have a bone to pick with them. I really do.
So let's talk about this love-hate relationship. Where can third-party private label brands, how can they position themselves to be able to leverage the Amazon channel without giving up too much, or being in a place where there is some insulation from some of these random actions on Amazon's part?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, the private label path is the way to go, right? You have to have there. You and I both know them. Retail arbitrageurs. There's still some drop shippers, even though it's not allowed on the platform. There's resellers. Some of them are wildly successful. I just don't think that's a long-term strategy. You've got to be a private label seller. That's step number one. Number two, you've got to be brand registered, although that's not even close to a silver bullet, right? Number three, not only do you have to have your own product and you have to have your own brand, you have to differentiate yourself in the market. You have to bring a product that's more than just another knockoff at a cheaper price. You cannot compete with China, right? And so that's where you have to sort of engage the creative juices.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, because honestly, when I look in lots of different product search results, I'm seeing products that all basically look the same. And yet there are obviously some products that show up at the top of search. They don't look that different than the products on the second page or the third page, but they may be spending more money to drive traffic. And the differentiation is really being willing to spend more on advertising versus my listing isn't fundamentally better or worse than the next guy. My reviews aren't fundamentally better or worse than the next guy's, but people are assuming we're still talking all white hat here. Even among white hat sellers, there are some that, quite frankly, they have a Me Too product. So how do you leverage that lost art of really having a meaningful point of differentiation? How do you do that? And how do you do it on a sustained basis?
Oh, it's a really good question. Look,
I know we don't have 2 hours to have this conversation, but
we need more time, James. But I'll try to give some high level stuff here. But I want to start by saying, there's 150 million Prime subscribers. When I talk to my clients, I say, look, you're not going to get the first 50 million of those Prime subscribers that are only looking for price. They're only looking for the lowest price. Let China have those. Let somebody else have those clients. What you want is the 50 million on the top third of those Prime subscribers that have very high income. Our strategy that we are a proponent of is coming at a premium level on Amazon. And what do I mean by that? I'll give you a real world example. That air hockey table that I was telling you about that had the board short design. So, when we first started selling our own air hockey tables, we were doing the knockoff thing, but then we started to differentiate, right? We started to notice that all of the designs on this page looked a certain way. It looked like some old professional dude who used to play pool designed this thing, and it was ugly, right? So we also realized by looking at our client base, which is something that I encourage all sellers to do, and you can get some of this demographic information now in Seller Central, which is a nice, thank you Amazon for that. You identify who your key customer is. Who are the people that are buying your product category now, and make sure that the designs that you create, this goes far beyond the features, but the designs are really attractive to that premium customer that's within your demographic, right? And how do you do that? Well, we used to do it on the cheap. Anything I look in popular culture anywhere, whether it was online, at a mall, driving down the road, I'd take pictures of stuff that I thought looked cool color designs, cool shapes. I mean, I designed a ping pong table when I saw this really cool blue racing stripe Mustang, right? We took the color designs from a blue Mustang and put it on. So those kinds of things, something that adds a little juice to the product, that makes it more than a commodity. And it makes it like, sort of a premium product. And look, MP3 players back in our time, James, were just a dime a dozen, and they sucked and they didn't work. And it was a commodity market. If you looked at it before Apple launched, the iPod, you would say, this is a commodity market. I don't want to go in here and do that. Steve Jobs came in and said, we can do better. So that's the attitude that you have to bring. I'm not a Steve Jobs, and most people aren't. But look at the premium side. What can you do to inject some juice into this product design? Because I'll tell you, when I got my features right, when I got my reviews right on that board shorts air hockey table,
right,
I was top 10 seller in the category at 30% higher retail price, 30%. And I sold just as many as the guy that was, 10 and 11, and it jumped off the search results page.
So
we're talking product design, right?
Product design as one point of differentiation. Let me ask you, let's go back 20 years ago. Let's say today you were building a private label business from scratch and you had the last 20 years of learnings behind you. What would you do differently than what you did 20 years ago?
Oh, well, I wouldn't make all those mistakes that I made in order to get to that point.
You'll make a new batch of mistakes.
There were many, James.
Yeah.
But I don't, honest to God, if I were to start a brand tomorrow,
okay,
I would do the exact same thing that I did once I figured this process out. Forget about all the steps and failures that I had leading up to this process. I would do the exact same thing. And look, if I was in a category where 6 other sellers already beat me to the punch, and they were already have great premium products with 4.5 stars that was priced premium but also ranked really well. I don't know if I go after those guys. There's so many subcategories, and you and I see them every day, James, where it is uninspiring. The first page of search results is just a big freaking yawn, right?
Yep.
And there's so much opportunity. So maybe I pivot from the category I'm in because there's some folks that already figured it out. I pivot to another category where I can apply the same process under different content, different category, and be like, I don't want to say be the Apple because that's sort of ostentatious, but to be the premium brand.
One of the things though that I would say as an outsider looking in on your private label business, you were able to keep somewhat of a moat around other competitors because you were selling big, bulky, oversized products, which is not something that every private label seller wants to jump into.
Yeah.
Would you still
go? Good reason.
Would you go still into oversized if you could? Tell me
more. No, because the freight, the LTL, the less than truckload delivery business is one of the worst businesses in America. It's the most disjointed, crazy, bad business there is. I used to pray that Amazon would actually get into that business and fix it because it was such a mess. It definitely created a moat for us. It was a lot harder to launch a product that was a 500-pound pool table than it is that's a 2-pound FBA item. There's a lot more competition in the FBA world. If I were to start again, I'd probably start making spatulas, James. No parts, FBA, and I'd have the coolest damn spatula you could ever imagine.
You heard it here first from Mr. Cool, Jason Boyce. Let's shift gears here a little bit. You've been following the Amazon antitrust discussions and been quoted in the press a few times on this. When you look at the size and scope of Amazon today in its marketplace, what do you think might lead to a more balanced relationship between Amazon and Amazon sellers in the future?
It's a problem. There's a lot to unpack there. And I think the first step is awareness, right? What is it, like AA? The first step is admitting you have a problem. I think the country is getting there now. I think legislators are getting there that, I've said this a few times, that the one thing that Democrats and Republicans can agree on is that Amazon is a problem. We can't become the United States of Amazon. They just launched Amazon Pharmacy. Now they're going to have not only all of your purchasing data that you've ever had, but now they're going to have your health information. They've got the new ban that's come out. Look, there's not a situation now where the next Amazon can come up. And look, in the early 90s, the antitrust folks came out, attempted and failed to bust up Microsoft, but because of the concessions they got from that process, Google was able to be born. There would be no Google if the legislators hadn't taken action and beat up Microsoft about the head and shoulders to open up, the possibility for a Google to come up. Now Google's a problem, right? Now now the way things are set up, there's no chance for the next Google to come up either. It's just not possible. They just own search, and Amazon owns products. And so you and I have talked about this so many times. There's a couple of things that I think, I feel like instead of home runs, I think it's a long shot. I hope it happens, but because I think Mr. Bezos would be even richer if it happens. I think Amazon should be busted up, but that's going to require an entire rethinking of antitrust law for the last 20 years. And by the way, I'm no lawyer, so I've just, I'm a hobbyist. I'm a hobby lawyer. I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. So, and so when I look at what can be done, I think legislators need to change the laws and hit some singles. And so what do I mean by that? Section 230 of the CDA is a problem. It wasn't a problem in the 90s. It was brilliant legislation that allowed these companies in the internet age to become what they are. But for God's sakes, put a number of years cap on it. You as a company shouldn't be allowed for the rest of your existence to have this protection. That protects product safety.
Yeah. So talk to our audience about how Section 230 helps Amazon specifically with the marketplace.
Sure. So Section 230 probably, a good way to look at this is these platform companies like Facebook would have never been able to be able to come into existence if there weren't legal protections for them, which allowed you and I to go on Facebook and say whatever the hell we want to say, as long as we're not saying the building's on fire.
Right.
And so, which was important to this nascent Silicon Valley industry, Seattle industry that came up. And so a lot of people don't realize that Section 230 protects Facebook from, and look what they have done to our politics, to our country, to this building this divide, but it also protects Amazon. And so specifically with Amazon, although not in California, because the California Supreme Court just allowed a shopper to sue them. So yes. Amazon as a platform is allowed to sell whatever the heck that they want from China, from anywhere else, from wherever, not require safety requirements and measures and testing before selling the product on their platform.
Yep.
And if an Amazon shopper buys that product and the retractable dog leash snaps and they lose an eye, guess what? There's no recourse for that shopper to sue Amazon. And they also they sign away their rights. I think the overarching theme of the next two things that I'll say, James, is this has to happen in the courts, but the legislators have to make it possible for consumers and sellers to sue Amazon, to sue Facebook. That can't happen right now.
Yep.
And so when you become an Amazon buyer, a shopper, you waive your rights. When you become a seller, you're forced into you do this forced arbitration, which forbids you from you have the same problem. Amazon is suppressing my buy box when I put things on sale on Walmart.com, and I'm losing 30% of my business. You can't go out and find the other 10,000, 120,000 sellers that are doing that and file a class action suit to get Amazon to overturn this nefarious practice, right? So I think that's the path here.
So you talked about consumers also not being able to sue. Tell me more about that.
Well, Section 230 protects them. I mean, there were two very famous cases, one in Pennsylvania, one in Ohio. In Pennsylvania, lady bought a dog leash, retractable dog leash from a seller that was not in the United States. The damn thing snapped. She lost an eye. She tried to sue Amazon. It's worked its way all the way up to the highest courts in Pennsylvania, and she lost. She was not able to sue Amazon because Amazon is saying, I'm just a platform. I don't have any responsibility to make sure with my customer obsession that the products that are selling on my platform are actually safe. And then there was a kid, and this is an awful story. A kid bought a caffeine powder. He was a fitness freak, and he died as a result of buying a product that was completely beyond the limits of the amount of caffeine that should be included in a powder. And the kid died. His parents tried to sue Amazon in Ohio, and the Ohio Supreme Court said, under existing law, you cannot sue Amazon. Go after the seller. Well, where's the seller from? Ain't from here. It's not a U.S. company, right? So Section 230 had a time in history where it was important, but the biggest mistake that they made is they said, okay, after 10 years, after 15 years, you're going to lose these because you got to, if you're Amazon, you got an entire high-rise building full of lawyers, right? So you should be able to defend yourself, and you should be able to do things in the public good that allows, for things to work themselves out in the courts. So that's Section 230. That's the product safety side, which I think is a big issue. And then from the seller side, for the right to sell on Amazon, which is incredibly powerful, you give up all of your rights to basically sue them or combine your case with many others in a class action lawsuit to have them stop. So Amazon does whatever the hell they want, James. I mean, nobody knows this better than you.
Right.
They do whatever they want. And they don't have any rules requiring them to give sellers a heads up. They don't, it's a problem. It's a societal problem, in my opinion.
Let's jump out of that frying pan. Let's go.
Okay, good, because I'm getting fired up. I'm getting too hot and bothered now.
Let's talk about what's happening with shipping and last mile logistics in Q4. UPS and FedEx have both had to shorten or stop ground shipping a few days earlier in December. That's creating a big mess for retailers that are not called Amazon. Amazon's got the largest last mile logistics of any retailer in the US. Tell me a little bit more about what should FBA sellers that are struggling today in Q4, struggling to get inventory replenished into FBA, what should they be thinking about for next year? And what should Amazon be doing to prepare for Christmas 2021? And let's assume COVID has passed, but the interest in buying products online continues to be there. What do you suggest Amazon do? And what do you suggest FBA sellers do in order to avoid some of these challenges again next year?
Great question, James. Let's start with Amazon. Amazon's going to be fine. They have 500,000 contract delivery drivers right now. Mm-hmm. They'll hire another 500,000 next year if it means they won't have a repeat of the late deliveries that we've seen this holiday shopping season. Mm-hmm. They got no problem. All of their investors are convinced they don't have to make money on this. Yep. This is continuing to build a bigger, deeper, wider moat with lots of nasty creatures in it that prevents any of their competitors from crossing. Yep. And so they're going to be fine. I kind of anticipate a small contraction on the growth rates for online shopping because frankly, we're all been so cooped up for so long. We're going to love to go back and walk around the mall, right?
We want to go shopping rather than buying.
Yeah. Look, the brick and mortars aren't going anywhere. So a lot of them are. A lot of them are going away, the ones that don't adapt. And, I'm in LA now, James, and there's 2 Amazon shopping stores like within 10 miles of where I live. Mm-hmm. I say Amazon grocery stores, sorry. And so Amazon's going to be fine. I actually predict that this time next year, their one-day delivery is going to be out of this world because they, unlike these other folks, are not going to reduce this excess capacity that they've added. They're just going to increase the delivery times. I think their system just gets better and better, and the competition gets farther and farther, and that includes FedEx and UPS. FedEx and UPS are not investing at the rate that is keeping up with demand, and they will continue to not invest at the rate that is keeping up with demand. I don't get it.
So what do I do if I'm an FBA seller and I'm so dependent on Amazon's fulfillment centers to do all my order fulfillment? What do I do between now and next year?
Yeah, great question. You have got to have a backup plan, and you have to have more than one warehouse location. Use third-party logistics companies, but I'll give you an example. When at our peak business in my previous business, we had a warehouse in Salt Lake City. Okay. And from Salt Lake City with FedEx ground rates, you can deliver with the ground rate 2 days anywhere in the Western states.
Okay.
I think it's 13, 14 states.
So we're talking merchant fulfilled here at this point.
We're talking, that's the backup plan. You've got to have a backup plan for merchant fulfilled. Yep. Because frankly, we have seen that Amazon will put its own buyers way ahead of third-party sellers when it comes to warehouse space. We've got some anecdotal.
Even so, a bunch of my first-party clients right now, they can't get their orders picked up. Amazon's more than 2 weeks behind just getting the truck to physically show up. Yeah. So maybe 1P's getting a little advantage, but it's still not a adequate coverage to make 1P brands happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to have an FBA and an FBM listing. You've got to have the ability to deliver fast, not ship fast, not get it out the door in 24 hours, get it to the doorstep, in 2 days, 3 days.
So how do I do that? I'm a modestly sized FBM seller.
Yeah.
I have a FedEx account. I have a UPS account. I have a post office account.
Yeah.
How do I create a better solution when, earlier this month, UPS announced that they were not picking up from some major retailers like
Yeah.
Nike.com. How the heck is some small FBM seller supposed to be able to compete in a model where even the big guys can't get UPS capacity?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one. If the projections are what's important. So in October, what you're alluding to is FedEx and UPS came out and said, we don't have any more excess capacity.
Yep.
But everyone who had the forethought to say, I'm going to need this many trucks in November and December and get those in before October are going to be fine, so long as they don't have like the Baby Yoda hit toy this year and they sell much more than they thought they were going to sell, right? Look, I think that I think you have to have warehouse locations in multiple places across the United States so that you can do these deliveries when the trucks become available. So you have to start thinking 9 months ahead of time, 12 months ahead of time. In January, take a look at your holiday shipments and your sales, both FBA and FBM, if you've got it. And you have to make a reasonable projection of how much volume you're going to do next holiday season and start working on those contracts with UPS and FedEx in January, in February, in March. You can always tell them you need less, but you've got to get those orders in and that capacity locked in with a contract with them early. And you have to have inventory in more than one location, James. Salt Lake City covers you for the West Coast. Ohio is a great location. Atlanta is a great location. If you can have inventory placed in those 3 locations, and you have these contracts, these national contracts, even if you're small, you can still do this. If you've got inventory and have them all under one account, have your third-party logistics company ship under your account, you can deliver fast and you can make up for hiccups in the system. Although, you and I know Amazon well. Amazon is not going to have the same number of hiccups next holiday season that they had this holiday. They're just not.
There may be fewer, but when Amazon has hiccups, they have all sorts of long-term ramifications that go and hit thousands of sellers. And so to what extent can you realistically reduce the risk of Amazon doing something that's going to majorly impact your third-party business? It's part of life living in the Amazon frying pan. So,
I mean, this is the antitrust thing we were talking about, right? The simple answer, like if you listen to Jeff Wilke and Jeff Bezos, is just go sell somewhere else. No one's holding the gun to your head. But what happens when they go try to pick up the same business on Walmart.com? They get 5% of the sales. So this circles back to our other previous discussion. Amazon is really, really powerful, and COVID has made them probably 3 times more powerful than they were before COVID.
So you went through this process at least 16, 17 times. Early Q1, after a successful Q4, you look back at your recent performance and you say, okay, over the next year, I've got to make some changes. Talk to me about, beyond the logistics discussion we just had, are there other types of affordable but important changes that you would suggest 3P sellers be looking at making to prepare themselves better for late 2021?
Yeah, I mean, the SKU count is something that we would do in February every year, late January, early February. We would take a look at the performance of every single SKU. And at our peak, I think we had, look at our dropship peak, we had 30,000 SKUs. But when we transitioned to private label sales, we had maybe 400 or 500 SKUs. And so we look and did an honest assessment on every one of those SKUs. We doubled down on the ones that performed really well, and we put the other ones under the microscope that didn't do well. And we did our research. We said, why didn't this do well? And we looked at the competitors, and you got to look at the competitors on a quarterly basis because there's a whole new batch every 3 months, James.
Right.
And we looked at the competitors, and sometimes we walked away from SKUs. We closed some stuff out. We took a haircut. We got rid of it. We turned that inventory into some amount of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked at opportunities that we missed, and we looked at categories that we wanted to expand into to see if there was opportunities to make a cool new premium product. And the whole 80-20 rule doesn't apply online. It doesn't apply on Amazon. You shouldn't necessarily have 20% of your SKUs doing 80% of your sales. All your SKUs should be doing well. You're going to have some that aren't going to do quite as well, but they should be top sellers in the category. And if you can't have any sort of meaningful sales, you have to ask yourself the question, do I want to apply my limited amount of capital to this SKU so that it can sit cash on the shelf, or do I want to get rid of that thing, turn it, tweak it, make it better, or eliminate it entirely and put those dollars into my big sellers? Can I have a SKU that does 10 million a month? I've seen it. You and I've seen it. Can I have one that does 250,000 a month, a million a month? Yeah. Maybe that's where my energy should go.
So the conundrum here is we tell sellers you need to diversify, and yet because you have to double down and drive traffic to your listings through advertising investment, you do have to consolidate, because you can't splinter your ad budgets to the point where you get $5 a month for this product. Well, that's not going to do anything for me. So on the one hand, Amazon can suspend the listing, and darn it, you're stuck with a big problem because one listing's not going anywhere. But on the other hand, if you spread yourself too thin, you're going to be in a situation where, you're a mediocre company that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real squeeze. The advent of sponsored ads and the requirement of having to pay for ads has been a real strain on sellers. I never liked it when it launched. I hate it still. But that's the reality. And so there's some other creative things that you can do, James. Let's say you got a hero product and you want to expand your SKU pipeline.
Yep.
Well, if you think there's some ancillary products or some products that are like it, you can do some promos. You can offer, if someone buys my hero product, I can offer, you get this other product for 10, 15% off, right? So you're not putting that 10 or 15% into ad budget, but you're picking up some sales in rank because you're piggybacking off the success. Now, typically when we do promos for our clients, we're seeing some pretty good adoption rates. 20, 30% of people are seeing these promos and taking advantage of them.
Have you tried out the virtual bundling beta? Have you done any of that with any of your clients?
We have. I tell you, I wish the virtual bundles would allow us to combine 2-packs and 3-packs. They don't. There has to be different products.
Yeah.
And so, look, it's early stage. We don't have a ton of data to look at, but we have some clients where it just makes a whole lot of sense to do a virtual bundle, and we're grateful that FBA is allowing us to do that now. So you send one set of towels, one set of sheets, whatever. You can certain bundles that you can put together virtually, and it doesn't cost you much to test 3 or 4 of them and get rid of the ones that died and double down on the ones that worked. So virtual bundles are cool.
So I want to wrap up our conversation today and ask you, when you look at what's happening right now in the Amazon ecospace, are there certain types of brands or companies or solution providers that you're seeing that we should all be paying attention to? Again, a brand audience we have here today, when you look at what's happening on Amazon, and you look at the types of technologies and companies that are coming along to help support those brands, what are you seeing that's of interest to us?
Well, look, we can talk about that, but I want to go a little bit higher level to answer that question, James.
Sure.
The most interesting thing, I think, that you and I have talked about this, that we've seen in the last couple of years, is the rise of the aggregator. The FBA business aggregator. Thrasio was the first to market with their gazillion-dollar valuation. They've proven the model. And now there are just, half a dozen to a dozen aggregators that have raised, billions of dollars. I think at least, I shouldn't say billions, at least $1 billion has been raised. So why is this good for the third-party seller? And what do you need to do differently as a result of the aggregators? So number one, the margin squeeze has been happening forever. And so it's really hard. If you think today you're going to start a third-party seller business and you're going to run that thing as an Amazon seller for the rest of your life and make a ton of money, you are wrong. You are absolutely incorrect, right? Amazon will be probably your major sales channel, and you got to be there, but that is a really hard life. Now, because of all these aggregators, if you set up an FBA business and you do a really good job, and you keep your costs really, really low, and you create cool, new, exciting product that gets really great reviews, you have another option to make money. You can sell your FBA business. You can run it for 3 to 5 years, or maybe even less if you can get up to 7 figures. Then you can get one of these aggregators and buy what you've created, and now you can walk away with some money and take the 6 months off that you got to take off to recover from running your business.
Sure.
So I mean, that's the most exciting thing, and I've been tracking that, and I think it's great for third-party sellers, especially. I think it also tells you just how big. If that doesn't tell you that Amazon's big, that there are companies out there that are raising hundreds of billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars to go up buy Amazon sellers to make bigger companies, I don't know what is. I mean, Amazon is the internet of products, and that story just sort of proves the model.
Jason, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on our podcast. For those of you interested in learning more about Jason's Avenue 7 agency, please visit avenue7media.com. And if you're interested in checking out Jason's new book, The Amazon Jungle, guess what? You can go to Amazon and type in The Amazon Jungle.
They haven't taken it back. They haven't taken it down yet, James.
Thanks very much for joining us today, Jason.
Thank you, James. Always a pleasure.
And now to finish today's podcast, I'd like to share some final thoughts. For third-party sellers to be successful on Amazon, a critical lever will be soliciting feedback from customers. We at BuyBox Experts are really big fans of the team at Ecom Engine and its tools that help Amazon sellers to simplify the process of messaging customers of Amazon orders. To learn more, go to ecomengine.com. And with that, I want to thank you for listening today, and I look forward to joining you next time on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.